Hey, I just wanted to give you a bit of a demonstration about direction and how we would apply that to a map. So direction is just a way to describe to someone how we would get from one place to another from a starting point. Now, hopefully by now you've seen a compass before, but I'm just going to draw a simplified version of a compass with the main cardinal points first, and then have a look at some of the intermediate points we might see. So, if you want to follow along and copy on a piece of paper, by all means go for it. But if you just want to have a look and see what I'm doing, you'll find out what you need to know. So when we see a cross like this, and we've got the letters north, south, east, and west, we are looking at a compass with its cardinal points, its four main points. And you might have heard rhyming things like never eat soggy Weet-Bix, but as a proper geographer, I'd probably encourage you to just use the letters and call them out in a specific way: north, south, east, west. And that's pretty important because when we go to look at the intermediate directions, we'll do a little bit of algebra and see how they're linked together. So these four cardinal points, are the ones that we would ordinarily use to describe general directions. And you might be asked a question, what's the direction from Sydney to Hobart? And you tell someone, oh, you go south. So it's a nice general direction, not too specific at times, but nice and general, and people would generally get the gist. If you want it to be more specific, we then start to look at those intermediate points, the directions between these main cardinal points. So I'm going to use a different color to show you those, and we're just going to stick with the four intermediate directions that we're probably going to come across, and then we'll go from there. So the direction that's in between north and east, we call it northeast. All right, we don't call it east-north because it just doesn't roll off the tongue that well, but because north and south, remember we say those first, north, south, east, west, or north and south are a little bit more dominant when we go to add the names together, so they'll always go first. You'll always have north and south together. So northeast, the direction between south and east is southeast. Again, south more dominant than east in the naming. Southwest and northwest. So these are our four common cardinal points, and then our four main dominant intermediate points. There are directions that we can talk about in between, but for the purposes of the mapping that we're doing today, that's probably more than enough. So why don't we apply these to some mapping questions? So first of all, I'm going to show you this map, and I hope it does appear on screen okay and you can see that. I'm going to talk you through some practice mapping questions that you might come across with a nice simple map like this. Map of Blue Lagoon with a yellow stream heading in. Just before I get onto those directions questions, just want to point out a couple of features in case you're not familiar with them. On this particular map, the lagoon, which is labelled as lagoon, is a water body. So is the stream, and they're coloured in white. So without a key, we're just making the assumption that everything white on here is water. The grey area is land. So this point F and the line that's around the Blue Lagoon, we're going to assume is at sea level or 0 meters. Every line that's coming past that will either be labeled or we need to associate a value with that, because these contour lines show us the shape and the height of the land. So this line, which is adjacent to the 0 line on the Blue Lagoon, is labeled with 10. So that'll stand for 10 meters. Every point on this line is 10 meters above sea level. 20, 30, 40, 50 meters above sea level. You can tell that the shape of the land changes because in some areas the contour lines are far apart, and that generally indicates there's a fairly gentle slope. It's not very steep land here, whereas here where we've got the contour lines close together, that indicates to us steeper land. So what types of questions might we get asked for directions with this sort of map? Well, I've prepared a couple for you. We might have a look at those two right now, and we'll look at them as a literacy activity, and then we'll have a go at answering them on the map. So question 1, what is the direction from point A to point D? From point A and point D here on the map. So it's important when you read a question like this that we know where we're measuring from, because if we start at the wrong location, we might actually get the wrong answer. So let's have a read of it again. I want you to think, where do I start measuring from in this question? We're looking for the from place. What is the direction from point A to point D? Have you picked where you're starting from? We're going to start from point A. So we're going to measure from point A and make our way to point D. So let's have a look at the map. We're going from point A to point D. If I start from point A and I'm making my way to point D, if you can't picture for yourself a compass, you might draw a quick one over in the corner of your map. Or if you're allowed to draw on your map, you might even draw a little compass over the top of the point that you're referring to. Now, a good tool to always have is a ruler or a piece of paper, because what you can do is join those places together. And you might say to yourself, well, and I'll get myself a different colored pen. So my purple line is going to be the edge of the piece of paper where it joins A to D. I've sort of drawn the direction that I'm moving in, and to me that looks closest to southeast. So if I measure from A going towards point D, and I used even an edge of a piece of paper to join those 2 points to be as accurate as possible, and just draw a line between them, to me that looks like it could be a southeasterly direction. Let's read the second question, make sure we fully understand it, and then try and answer it. It's asking us what direction is point A from point D? In question 2, where am I starting from? What's the from place? What direction is point A from point D? So I'm going to start from point D and then measure towards point A. So let's have a look at that. Starting from point D this time and measuring back up to point A. Again, if I'm unsure or they're too far away, I could even draw a little compass over the top of it myself, and then use the edge of a piece of paper to line them up and maybe draw at least a bit of a line that tells me what direction I'm meant to be looking for. So my purple line that I've just drawn here says that I'm moving from point D towards point A in that direction. And for me, that's probably going to be closest to the northwesterly direction. So what you might do is have a look at the map here, pause the video and come up with your own questions. What's the direction from point D to C to E, things like that, and see if you can test yourself. Your teacher will be able to give you some feedback on how well you're doing.